Alright, number 7 and number 8 for the practice exam. A random digits dialing sample of 1750 adults found that 1140 used the internet. Of the 1140 that used the internet, 940 said they expect businesses to have websites containing product information. 320 of the 610 non-users said this too. Let P1 and P2 be the proportions of all internet users and non-users, respectively, that expect businesses to have websites containing product information. And 90% confidence interval for P1 minus P2 is so two proportion z interval is what we're doing here. So what you want to do is you go stat test, and towards the bottom you have two proportion z interval. All right. So what you want to do is you want to put the higher proportion first, and the higher proportion is 940 out of 1140. And again, you want to do it this way because you want to avoid negative numbers. And this is a rule of thumb, and I've said this in other videos. This is the rule of thumb with proportions. Unless it tells you that there's a sequence between the proportions, like one of the proportion is a year earlier, like 1999, and then the next proportion is 2000, then you would have to follow that sequence, even though that it might yield negative numbers. You might have, you know, P1 smaller than P2, so P1 minus a higher number will be a negative number. Anyway, so because we recognize that 940 over 1140 is the higher proportion, we put that first. Then our next proportion, 320 over 610. And then it's a 90% confidence interval, and we calculate. All right, notice that the answer that we get in the calculator is in a different form than the options that we have, but pretty easy to go from here. What we can do is the easiest way, I think, is to just go one by one and see which one of these plus and minus will equal the interval. So let's just go with what the answer is. So 0.3 plus 0.038. That should give us 0.338. And you know what? I have a feeling it will. Yep, 0.338. So that's why it's B. Again, don't be alarmed just because your calculator gives you the interval and you have the options right here. You're like, oh, which one is it? I'd feel really bad for you if you did it right to this point and then you just mess up because you don't know how to do the plus or minus from your four options. Anyway, it's B. So number 8, it says, is it appropriate to use the large sample method for the previous exercise? Here, there's really no explanation. You just have to remember the conditions for large sample method. And the condition is that you have to have at least 10 or more success and failures for both samples, for both proportions. So it's B. This is something that you must remember. No math behind it. This is just a condition that needs to be met. So 8 is B.